Welcome back to Observing the Sabbath. I'm your host, Nathaniel Molnar. We're joined once again by Johnny Gifford. Johnny, thanks for being here.
Of course, as always.
Now, you were with us a couple of songs ago for Paranoid, which you helped us talk about, which that was a great discussion. So now we are back and we are talking about Electric Funeral, which is one of the very interesting songs here on the album Paranoid. We are, of course, going through the entire album of Paranoid, making our way through the album. And so now we are continuing with Electric Funeral. Johnny, are you ready to listen to this song?
I've never been more ready in my life.
All right, then let's do it. We are listening to Electric Funeral. And now. I love this.
You know, I've never really paid attention much to the lyrics of this song, but I've listened to it a lot solely for the musical aspect. It's just like, for me, it's one big curve. It's like we start off this slow, sludgy riff. It's great. Middle gets so just banging and like lots of energy, and then it comes right back down for a while. Really cool.
Yeah. It has that like...
What can you tell me about the lyrics?
So the lyrics are all about nuclear annihilation, which is really interesting because Paranoid is probably Black Sabbath's most political album. They have War Pigs, which is all about war, obviously. They have this song, which is about nuclear annihilation, and because, you know, this is taking place in 1970, which is the height of, you know, scares around nuclear war. They have Hand of Doom, which is all about heroin overdoses. So they have a lot of different political ideas going on throughout this album, and this is probably one of their best.
Definitely. Yeah, I forgot Hand of Doom was about like heroin and addiction and overdose. I thought Hand of Doom was the one about nuclear annihilation, but I guess I got the two mixed up. But yeah, dying world of radiation, victims of man's frustration, burning globe of obscene fire.
Like electric funeral fire. Fire.
There it is, folks. There it is.
Yeah. This is one of those songs...
Back to the riff.
Yes. This is one of those songs we were talking about that kind of has like a few different riffs that kind of goes back and forth. I do love sort of the meandering, and I think something that they do with this song, I feel like the tone of the song and the cadence of the song almost takes on nuclear war itself, because you sort of have this like slower build all the way through the song, and then it hits all of a sudden, which is exactly kind of like...
we're starting to get to that. Yeah, we're starting to get to that climax point. It's like...
It's ramping up.
You can tell everything dropped out a little bit. Drum start, layers come, and then here we go.
This is the part where the mosh pit would go crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love all the lyrics through this. It's just all craziness and mayhem.
Especially these lyrics specifically during this part are they evoke a lot of imagery of just chaos.
Exactly.
Crashing down, rivers turning to mud, Isaac melting into blood.
Yeah, that was something I was talking about with their self-titled album, is that they have a lot of songs where they just very strongly invoke imagery, and they do that a lot with their first song, Black Sabbath. It's all about, like, distinct imagery about chaos and mayhem, and you have that specifically in this song as well.
You know, did you hear that voice that just said Electric Funeral? Is that Ozzy?
That is, it is Ozzy because, I believe at least, because when you watch them perform the song live, he does that part himself.
Okay.
I think they just kind of like augmented it a little bit.
Yeah, because I could totally hear it as being his voice, but it's just so different from how he normally sings that I have to ask myself for a little bit, you know? See,
that's the thing with Ozzy singing, because he does, when another song that we talked about on this album, Planet Caravan, he sings that one, and it's very different from his normal singing. He sings on Master of Reality, he sings Solitude, which sounds nothing like Ozzy. And it's really, even now, the amount of times I've listened to Solitude, I still listen to it and I'm thinking, this can't be Ozzy. This can't be him. This sounds nothing like him. but it is.
I feel like 75 to 80% of their songs he's singing like he, is throughout most of the song, and then sometimes he'll throw something totally different out that just I just always thought it was a different singer or something.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, does Tony sing here and there or something? Or
there
Deezer?
are only
Deezer?
two. There are only
Deezer.
two songs in the entire original run that drummer Bill Ward sang, which was "It's All Right" on Technical Ecstasy, and then the final song. I'm blanking on the name of "Never Say Die." I don't know why I'm forgetting it. This is killing me. I'm not a true Black Sabbath fan. I don't remember the last song. But anyways, the last track on Never Say Die, Swinging the Chain. He sings that one. But those are the only two that Bill Ward sings. And the rest of it, whether it sounds like him or not, it is Ozzy, which is really crazy to me. Tony always said that Ozzy Osbourne can have a voice that is really gifted for singing ballads, which is something you would never expect. But
not at all.
But when you listen to something like Solitude, you can hear that.
Yeah, that's pretty much a ballad, I feel like. It's very ballad-like. And his singing style here really fits the genre, it fits the mood, but it's nowhere near that.
Yeah. That's something about Ozzy Osbourne, is that I feel like his type of singing was always tailored to the kind of music that he was doing. And I feel like he always had the ability to go beyond that, to step outside of that. But he didn't, because Black Sabbath was what Black Sabbath was. And then when he was fired from Black Sabbath, he tried to do his, I say try as if he didn't succeed. He did his solo career, which was kind of building on that, but also kind of adjusting things more for what the 80s were and going more into a more hard rock rather than a heavy metal. And so he was always just kind of staying within these bounds that he had initially set himself up in. But it sounds, at least to me, when you hear him sing on Solitude or Planet Caravan, or when you hear someone like Tony Iommi talking about Ozzy's singing abilities, it really sounds like he does actually have the potential to go outside of that. He just doesn't really.
Yeah, exactly. And when you hear those few songs that he breaks from that mold, you know that he does have that ability, but he sings how he wants to sing in Black Sabbath, and it's still absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And that was something, I think, for Black Sabbath fans, that many Black Sabbath fans had to have this sort of discussion when Ozzy left and Dio came on as the lead singer. Because I think if you look at pure singing ability, I think Dio is a more talented singer than Ozzy Osbourne. But there is something missing about the Black Sabbath songs when Dio sang, that did not distinctly feel like Black Sabbath anymore, even though you still had Tony, even though you still had Geezer, even though I believe you still had Bill, even though you had them and it was just a new singer, there was something missing from that. And I think even though, and this is the enigma of Ozzy Osbourne, is that even though he is not the world's most technically proficient singer, there is a unique quality to him that is unattainable. You can't really recreate it. There's something unspoken about how he sings songs and what he does with it that really, for the right kind of band, really elevates it in a way that even a more proficient singer like a Ronnie James Dio coming in can't necessarily replicate.
And even if you're a more talented singer, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a better singer for whatever project you're working on, opposed to some other vocal style. Like you can strictly have a better voice and be a better singer.
Yeah.
But often people are drawn towards, you call it bad singing. But I mean, in a lot of music I listen to, the singing isn't necessarily like completely on par. Even for my own music, I'll admit my singing is not like divine or pristine, but there's a certain quality to that, like depending on the musical accompaniment. And with Black Sabbath, I think Ozzy's kind of strained and somewhat nasally voice as well, especially when he's exploding and when the guitars are exploding, they just work really well together, I think.
Yeah.
And having just a strictly more talented singer who knows how to, hit pitches and control their voice and maybe even use vibrato in their voice, whatever, for these songs, I don't even know if that would fit as well as Ozzy's voice does. It's more raw. It feels more raw.
Yeah, and especially when you get to some of the songs which are more emotionally charged, like The Writ or any of these other songs, you feel that. It feels more earnest because it does have that raw ability. And something that I don't think a lot of people give Ozzy credit for is his range in really hitting the high notes when he needs to. You definitely hear that when it comes to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. He really hits those high notes, or Symptom of the Universe. And that's something that when he needs to, he can really do very interesting things with his voice. He's not one note. But it's really the tone of his singing that works so well with what the tone of these songs are.
And you can really like hear and feel him pushing it when he's pushing it. On the few moments that he really does hit really high notes like that, you can feel that like he's really straining himself for it.
Yeah.
which I mean, I guess is a bad thing for your voice, because that's something I do a lot, is I strain myself. But I think honestly it kind of results in a more emotional and more emotive product.
Yeah.
Which I think he does a good job of in Black Sabbath as well.
Definitely. Bringing it back to the song Electric Funeral. So I was mentioning a little bit about how the structure of the song in terms of its speed and its tempo almost replicates the sort of rising tensions of nuclear war. That is something I think they do really interestingly in being able to evoke moods with some of their songs. And a lot of songs are about crafting atmosphere. And there was, what was it? It was A Bit of Finger, which is part of the last track of the Black Sabbath album. It's A Bit of Finger / Sleeping Village / Warning. You have this opening that I always kind of describe this feeling almost like a swamp with like a frog. You just kind of, it's just very interesting. It just kind of casts this atmosphere. And you see that with a lot of their songs, is that they are able to really distinctly create an atmosphere and a tone, and also use the instruments that they have and the sounds that they are creating together to replicate other sounds to kind of go along with what it is they're actually singing about. And so that was something I thought they do a really good job with on Electric Funeral.
Oh, yeah, especially in the song. I mean, like we mentioned, with the whole middle part just being that chaotic imagery. And I want to look at the lyrics now, the end. Yeah, it slows down a lot more. It feels more angelic. And then it starts talking about heaven's golden chorus sings, hell's angels flap their wings. It feels more post-climactic. It feels more slower, I guess.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term.
Yeah, kind of after you have the nuclear explosions, then it's all still again.
Yep. And that's exactly how the song feels too. They do a great job of carrying out that whole storyline.
Yeah. So this is a really great song. I really enjoy it. I don't know. I wouldn't put it as my favorite song of the album. It may not be a top 2 or 3 of the album, but it's a great song. I always love listening to it whenever I do. And I just love that middle part when it really picks up. So
it's so rewarding because the parts around it are so much more drawn back. Like it really emphasizes that middle climax, which just hearing it comparative, like hearing it in context, makes it that much better in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely. It's rewarding. And they do this with a lot of their songs because you have a slow build up to something, and then that thing is really rewarding because you've been building to it this entire time.
Absolutely.
So before we sign off, do you have any closing thoughts on Electric Funeral?
I definitely enjoyed doing this one with you a lot. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
No really further thoughts about the song. I think we just about covered it.
So, well, thank you, Johnny Gifford, for joining me for this. So did you want to plug your band real quick?
Yeah. So if you listen to the Paranoid episode, you heard me already self advertise myself, but I'm in a band called Det. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at DetBandMA, and listen to our album on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever that we just put out. First full length.
Definitely.
There might be a couple moments on it where you might be like, oh, I like Black Sabbath, so I like this. Like thinking about it, there's definitely a couple moments where we kind of get to that level of heaviness, but they're very few and far between, which I think makes it's that same thing. It feels more rewarding when you get to it. There's your incentive, you know. You feel like you're getting a reward by sitting through the rest of it.
Definitely. Johnny, thank you so much for joining me for this. And for you guys watching, let me know, what do you think of Electric Funeral? What do you think about what Johnny and I were talking about? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. And make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to subscribe to keep up with our look all the way through the album Paranoid and the subsequent albums going forward. So until our next observation, thank you for watching.